All right, so Charlie Kirk is at the DNC. By the way, there's been a number of videos of like people yelling at him or arguing with him or owning him and it being posted on TikTok or whatever. But he was at the DNC. So are the Young Turks. The Young Turks are on the ground at the DNC, and they're doing a show, I think, from like the media section on the floor, which, not gonna lie, as somebody who does this, that sounds kind of difficult. I don't know about you, but my attention would be going like all around and shit, and I wouldn't be able to hear. I don't think I'd be able to focus. I wouldn't be as sharp as I would normally be. But anyway, they somehow pulled it off and did a show on the ground here. And so they're interviewing / debating Charlie Kirk. And then this part gets a little fiery, man. This part gets a little heated. So they're going to get into, of course, Charlie Kirk is for Trump and Vance. Cenk and Anna are for Kamala and Tim Walz. Certainly Cenk is. I think Anna is, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, so they are going to go at it over this very basic question. Hey, can people who are childless have good politics? Make good decisions? You wouldn't think that would lead to a giant debate, but it did. Watch this.
Understand what he said about the childless cat women was that he was saying that when you have children, that your society is better governed when your leaders are having children, when they're not, otherwise when they're not having children. I think you guys could agree with that, right?
No. I don't think that's true at all.
So,
I mean,
can I just ask a hypothetical?
Hold on, let me
50 childless people and 50 people with families. Which group of people would make better decisions for the country the next 100 years?
I think that it is totally wrong to assume that
you don't think that having children makes any bearing on your politics?
No. I don't.
I think you don't think it does something to you, where like you think about the next generation? And
I think about the next generation.
Okay, it's amazing to me that Charlie Kirk would make this argument, because we could set up a situation where I find 50 people that have kids, but they're massive leftists. And I could find 50 people who are single, who are massive right-wingers, right? And in that scenario, of course, Charlie Kirk would switch it and say, in this instance, the ones who are right-wingers are correct, right? How did you not think this through? Like, obviously, we could set it up like that, and then you flip your position like this, which means what? The underlying position is absolute horseshit, right? It's just what it is. But he didn't think this through at all. But anyway, it's gonna get a little heated.
I mean, I don't have children.
Okay, that's fine.
I think about educating our kids. I'm worried about the fact that so many children in America are illiterate and cannot read. I think about the future of this country all day, every day, right? Like, I don't think having children is like the end all be all of whether or not you care about the future of this country.
And by the way, there's this weird hierarchy for people like Charlie Kirk, where it's like, this standard nuclear American family is ideal. 1 man, 1 woman, 2 or 3 kids, white picket fence, dog, etc. That's at the top. At the bottom are, the single people. And then I would fall in the category in the middle where, so I am a stepdad, but he would look at me like, that doesn't really count. They're not your biological kids, but maybe it counts a little more than somebody who's single. So he sets up this weird hierarchy, and it's like, you are thinking way too much about this, bro. That says nothing about what your politics are. The idea that, single people can't care about fixing the country and wanting to create a better future, that is so fucking dark and nihilistic.
I want you to be able to have kids. I don't want to make this about you, Ahmed, because I have a lot of respect for you. But I could tell you, as someone who has had kids and has not had kids, it does profoundly, deeply change. Yeah. And it changes your politics. It changes everything. And that's what J.D. Vance was saying, is that when a society starts having children, it starts to throw off the wiring of the multi-generational framing of how public policy decisions can be made. We're not going to agree on that, but I think it's rather common sense that when a society ceases to have children, the society ceases to exist.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that, and I want to ask you about Tim Walz in a second.
There's always going to be people, always, that have kids, right? Like the idea, if you incentivize not having kids, people will just stop having kids. There's always going to be some people who have kids. This idea of like, the society will go away if they all act like you do and are single. It's like, what are you doing? These are weird, these are personal decisions, and they weirdly try to extrapolate it into some universalist code that you have to abide by. It's very essentialist in his thinking, and it's this kind of thinking that gets you to the place where, people like Charlie Kirk, maybe not him specifically, but others in his camp would be like, a woman's job is to be in the kitchen and raise the children and shut up, right? Like that's where you end up.
Having kids didn't change your politics at all?
Not 1%.
Or your worldview?
Not 1%. No.
I can vouch for that.
Having kids didn't change it?
No. I mean, I love my kids more than you could possibly imagine.
So you didn't learn something about humanity or like how to pass values down or?
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about that all along.
That's incredible. I'm not doubting it, but like your why didn't change? Like why you fight so hard?
Yeah, no, it didn't at all. Yeah. Because I kind of view, this is really corny, but I view the audience and the voters and the average American as family.
Yeah.
And so exactly. I was already looking out for
So if this is a gruesome hypothetical, but if a shooter came in And would you defend your kids first or a stranger's kids? Or are they the same?
So, I mean, first of all, that's not going to change your opinion on healthcare. It's not going to change your opinion on
obviously
immigration.
defend your kids first, right?
But of course you're going to defend your kids.
No, but that's the point, is that so you have an attachment to your kids, so it has changed you.
Of course you have an attachment to your own kids, of course.
Well, that's
of course I attack them first.
You, right?
No, but it doesn't change my view on the world, on humanity, on politics, on policy.
I mean, right.
But if there's a shooting, of course I'm going to cover my kids first. I get it. But by the way, like in the Israel scenario, but I wouldn't say, hey, bomb other people's kids to protect mine.
No, I don't believe that. But my politics is all about protecting my kids.
So, okay,
that's the difference.
Hold on.
And actually, that goes to the
you're about protecting
everyone, right? And so, but that goes to the core, Charlie. And that's why this is such an interesting conversation between conservatives and progressives, because progressive ideology is help someone you don't know,
including non-American citizens.
So, I mean, generally speaking, I want to help the whole world, but of course, you take care of, you've got these circles. You got your family, nation, etc. But my point is, you guys circle the wagons, and we think about everybody in a way that's empathetic.
But this is the problem: is abstractions like that is how we end up invading Iraq and forget that our veterans are starving.
No, it's not. We end up invading Iraq because the neocon warmongers had a plan called the Project for a New American Century, and they want to control the fucking oil. It's got nothing to do with being a generally empathetic person led to the war in Iraq. No, quite the opposite. If we were generally empathetic and didn't prioritize like the profits of oil over people, then we wouldn't have invaded Iraq. It's the exact opposite of what Charlie Kirk is saying. Holy shit.
Foreign adventurers than the immediate.
And so, but that was for the military industrial complex and the oil companies. That wasn't for us or our kids.
Look at Lindsey Graham, people like that have like very weird personal lives. They tend to not care as much about the immediate. They care much more about the foreign and the abstract. But I'm curious though, that you don't think that family formation necessarily creates better politics.
I want to ask you something.
He's so stuck on that. And it's like, that is obviously untrue and a really childish belief. And he's like, but wait, you don't think it's right? No, Charlie, like I just said, I could find 50 people with kids, 50 couples with kids that are super left-wing. And I could find 50 single people who are super right-wing. And then you would say, oh, I guess my theory's wrong, right? Like, what are we doing here? I got to make this point too. This is something Destiny, the political streamer, has brought up. He kind of said the exact opposite of what Charlie Kirk is saying here, where he was like, I was very conservative when I had like no money and I was busting my ass working a job. But then when I sort of made it streaming and he has a kid, he's like, I realized how much goes into this is like luck, and that I want other kids to have the same opportunities my kid has because he's got a lot just because I made it successfully as a streamer. And so it's basically the exact opposite of what Charlie Kirk is trying to say here. Having a kid and making more money made him more liberal, right? Made him more liberal. Theoretically, I could see how in some instances having a kid would make you more liberal. Like you'd care more about like climate change, for example, But the reality is, I really think it's totally scattershot. I think some people, when they have kids, turn more conservative. Some people, when they have kids, turn more liberal. Some people, when they have kids, I think probably the majority are actually in the same position as Jank, where it's like, I already kind of had my worldview solidified and set by the time I hit age 26 or whenever given couple has kids. So it's just, I don't know. He's very married to this idea, and I find it kind of funny that he thinks it's like super convincing, but they're like, huh? Because obviously I think they're correct.
Right?
No, sorry, I don't mean to talk about it.
No, it's okay. Put that aside for a second, what you personally believe, put that aside, and think about optics and political strategy. Do you at least concede that politically speaking, when it comes to optics, it is not advantageous to accuse childless people in America of not caring about the future of the country because they don't have kids?
That's such a great question from Anna. That is such a great question. Because she's like, put the substance aside. Let's just talk about how people will perceive what J.D. Vance has said. And on this, the reason it's such a great question is because it's a fucking checkmate. You have to be like, yeah, I could see how people would think it, but let's see if he does.
People find that offensive,
but
right?
It's also very pro-family sentiment too, saying
I love family.
No, I mean, it's glad.
That's also an accusation, right? Like the idea that if you don't have your own kids, you don't care about family.
That's totally true. But also, let's stop pretending J.D. Vance is fucking pro-family. Charlie Kirk, he's not pro-family. He says, I want to do a 6,000 child tax credit extension. They just had a vote on it, and he didn't even go. 44 Republicans voted against the extended child tax credit, and he didn't even fucking show up. And now he has the nerve to go out there and say, I want to raise it. Really? Then why didn't you go vote on it when they just had a vote on it? He's not pro-family. Tim Walz gave us 12 weeks paid family leave. Tim Walz gave us 12 weeks paid sick leave. Tim Walz did free school breakfast for kids and free school lunch for kids. That's pro-family. That's pro-family. These are not J.D. Vance policies.
What you're asking me, is it smart politics? What he said was a couple years ago before he was the VP. And I think that's important because first of all, it was even before he was a Senate candidate. But even if he said it today, I would defend the essence of what he was saying, which is that when you have a group of people that are not attached, their public policy decisions are not immediately impacting the things that they cherish the most. And it's much more distant and much more detached and much more foreign, then public policy feels much more like playing Risk than actually managing your home.
That's a fucking horrible point, because all these policy preferences that you have, they will also impact you now. If we get universal health care, that would impact me now, right? If we get, I don't know, fill in the blank with whatever, UBI, that would impact me now. If we get 12 weeks paid family leave, 12 weeks paid sick leave, that would impact me now. That would impact everybody. So the idea, but you won't care because in the future, you don't have the kids to worry about it. No, people also think about it from the context of me right now. So God damn it.
And I think that's a big mistake. Conservatism at its best is trying to say, forget the abstractions. What's happening in the neighborhood? What's happening at church? What's happening with the family? But yeah, look, I share J.D. Vance's view on these things.
Yeah, so I'll say one last thing that I want to ask you about walls, because you asked me about walls. So look, I wrote a lot about this in my book, actually, Justice is Coming, because that's my main thesis on the difference between the left and the right. That the right is not indecent. A lot of people on the left think, oh, they're immoral, they're bad. And of course, the right thinks that about the left, etc. No, the right wing can be wonderful, but they have tighter wagons, right?
But do you understand that, though? Do you know where that comes from?
Yeah, I totally get where it comes from.
And I get the energy where it's like, I want to save the entire world. I'm like, okay, but like, how about you try to not have 70 shootings a weekend in Chicago before you tell me you're going to fight climate change?
Yeah, he says that, but is he in favor of any sort of basic gun regulation like red flag laws or universal background checks? Is he in favor of trying to keep the guns out of the hands of the psychopaths and the murderers? We all know the answer to that question. Anyway, great job there from TYT. Interesting debate, but I think it is, what do they say in Mortal Kombat? Flawless victory. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.